I don't think why do it is bad.
It's fucking garbage. Nike right now is past defensive. What Just Do It represented was a significant shift in the way that you messaged in that spot. It actually said, just do it. Our people do it. It represented
Our
strength.
athletes do it.
When people said Target, I got a feeling of what it was. Like it was kind of using that French accent to say it was sophisticated, that type of story.
Yeah, and it gave it an edge.
And that's what they should down. But all I see is like this bland circle, and I wonder, what is that store?
And they're not talking to anyone. They don't attract top talent, and there's nothing to be said about what makes their brand unique anymore.
I think people need to consider paying double for their front-facing staff at the stores to create the experience. Like, I want to go to Home Depot and have somebody who can help me navigate a renovation project. I don't want to go to a big store and have somebody who's a new immigrant get paid minimum wage who can't help me. Will Vogue actually go back to real style and fashion commentary and risk alienating the giant houses because they have so much power now? Vogue needs people in countries where fashion is emerging, like real humans, not just regurgitating digital stuff.
Kris Jenner had a crazy facelift this year. She looks absolutely insane. The doctor that she used is quoting at $300,000 as a starting point.
Beauty can come from working hard, like taking care of your skin and being fit. It also comes from good genetics. We want to recognize good genetics because they stand in the 10 to 20% of the human population, right?
Yeah.
That's what greatness is. It's always that not everybody has it. But if everybody has it, what is beauty?
What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand. Say it again now. What a brand, what a brand, what a brand, what a mighty good brand.
Welcome back, everybody, to another week of Art of the Brand. We've got some big stuff on our plate the next 2 weeks.
We'll leave it up to you to guess what is going on, but we might be offline for a couple of weeks traveling and see if you can guess what's happening.
So Nike has changed their slogan from just do it to why do it. And the slogan change is meant to better resonate with who have been named more of the anxious generation. So they are trying to adapt it to, I guess, the more cultural mindset that they're trying to tap into. I don't think why do it is bad. The way that they set it up in the commercial is actually just regurgitating just do it, because the commercial ends at the end with it's like, why put yourself on the line? Why work extra hard? Why make yourself uncomfortable? Why forego social relationships, go into scrutiny? And the whole idea of it is, why do it to be at the best, and then it ends with just do it and a guy laughing. So it's not actually really that new. They spend a ton of money to repurpose what they already had. I don't think that's Nike's issue. I think what Nike's issue is that Nike doesn't stand for anything anymore. I've got several things I did research on myself that the brand is diluted, has no personality, and it's trying to reclaim what made it great, which was hard things, when it's completely walked away from doing hard things.
This is a type of boardroom gymnastics that happen where they're like, look, we're going to call it why do it. We're going to spend a lot of money on sponsorship. We're going to make, there's some great filming in the commercial, and they come back to it. It's fucking garbage. And I'll tell you why it's garbage, is it's reactive and defensive. In warfare, Nike right now is past defensive. They can't defend them. They've lost it. They're going down. They got to launch a counterattack. What Just Do It represented was a significant shift in the way that you messaged in that spot. It actually said, just do it. Stop whining. Just do it. Our people do it.
Yeah.
It represented
Our
strength.
athletes do it.
It gives you goosebumps. It was
It
outside of the box. Why do it is placating to an anxiety-riven generation of frickin' floppers who you're asking to buy what they need to. What is this thing going on here?
I disagree with that point.
No, I'm not done though. Why do it is placating to the people who are in these CMO chairs who think they understand human behavior and they don't. They're just in a corporate bubble moving stuff around. Why do it sounds interesting. But after you have just do it, you don't go back to why do it. Right? What they needed to do is lean into they need to make Nike great again. They need to lean into what it was, which is not virtue signaling, but just saying our tribe, our chosen tribe of selected people, get it done. They just do it because that's aspirational. Why do it is like placating to the people who need to get an explanation, who need to have all their voices heard, who don't achieve anything other than demand stuff. But put them on the on cloud. You guys wear comfortable slippers masquerading as running shoes. We're for the people who do it. That's how I would have amplified this. But this is just, this is a feeble attempt to try to regain the initiative, and they won't have it.
So much to unpack from what you said. The on-cloud point is a separate point because actually on-cloud's marketing isn't good. On-cloud's marketing is following the same like woke,
That's what I'm
absolutely
saying.
doing nothing. The reason why OnCloud broke through is the original reason why Nike broke through. It was a different product. We had never seen anything like it before, and it was unique. So OnCloud, the success that we're seeing now is not the success that got at its tipping point. And Nike is the same beast. It's just it's a different head. The Why Do It campaign is good. And I actually think it is good for the next generation because there are no brands saying, the reality is the average brand right now is basically clapping for you for living in your parents' basement, doing nothing, not pushing yourself, not hard, not pushing yourself to be uncomfortable. This narrative at least reframes why do it, because anything worth doing is hard, which is at least a narrative that's missing. But, and I think this is a relevant point, the issue of where Nike is today is because they're being reactive. They are not setting the trend. So the narrative and the pendulum from moving away from the woke marketing changed a year ago. And this is Nike accepting that, but they were also too late with Colin Kaepernick. They're too late. They're a behemoth company that's trying to respond to trends. They're not setting the trends anymore. And there's nothing wrong with the campaign, but it's how they're moving.
There's something completely wrong with the campaign because why do it is not interesting. It's a question anybody gets. Like, what? Why do it? Like,
Wait. They're actually not fully changing their slogan. That's why they ended the video with "Just do it."
because they're scared to do something really transform. So
Well,
they're trying to play both games.
Just do it is a definitive statement. Why do it is an open-ended question. You can't change your slogan to an open-ended question. That isn't a tagline. So what they're doing is they launched a campaign to get buzz based on extending Just Do It. We're not really having a conversation about them changing their tagline.
But even the commercial, it didn't have people. It had celebrities. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't speak to, like, to me.
I agree with what you're a deeper, more cerebral person. But Nike, the issue is they're not speaking to anyone because they've also lost that high performance base, right? So they're trying to go back to what they once were, which I'm not saying is dynamic, which I'm not saying is different.
Just Do Its best commercial was when they had the 80-year-old man running across the Golden Gate Bridge who ran 10 miles every morning.
Yeah.
Right? And it just captured some of humanity. It wasn't celebrity worship with just putting pictures of celebrities saying, why do it? And then you have these people here. There's no meaning to it. It's a veneer of depth, like that's masquerading as meaning. Like, you can't get behind it. Everybody knows why do it. You want celebrity.
But like going back to when the brand was in a better place and speaking about the kinds of campaigns that came out of the company is too difficult of an assessment from how far Nike has veered away from its golden years.
No, you can rebuild, but you have to do something dangerous.
That's the larger conversation that we should be having, is that Nike isn't doing anything dangerous. It's not dangerous anymore to go back away from the super coddled bubble wrap packaging messaging and to move into like performance requires work. That's actually not risky at all.
No, it's obvious and boring.
I agree, but I also think that Nike is obvious and boring.
Yeah.
So what are we expecting from a brand that's lost its Nike? What made Nike great was that it came from grit, that it had the best shoes, that it had a breakthrough product.
It was like wearing colors. Like in the past, Nike, like years ago, when you wore it, you were putting on something that says like, I work hard. Like it had a meaning I'm the person who's up at 5 a.m. when nobody is watching doing reps. Now when you put on Nike, what does it represent? Like, I don't even want to be associated with Nike.
That's the reality of the world we live in with these behemoth brands that sold themselves out during the 90s and 2000s, is that the only way to really bring yourself back is it appears to be two ways. One, do something controversial like an American Eagle move so that at least people are talking about you, which most brands won't do because they're completely paralyzed by the idea of an actual headline that's not purchased. Or the second is to like Abercrombie yourself, which is just to use your brand name as a shell to become a different version of a Shein or a Temu, right? Like it's basically these two options where it's like just completely ruin your brand and use the money that you're using, or make a controversial statement in the media.
Most companies want to fight to get a monopoly of some sort. They get a big chunk of market share. It's hard to knock them off it. And then you watch them for 20 years, waste a lot of investor money, but don't take your cues from these companies. what Nike is doing now is nothing like what you should be doing, right? If you're a startup or a mid-sized company that wants to grow, you have to be taking risks. You have to be saying something that is controversial and meaningful and differentiates yourself. What Nike is doing is just spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to look cool, splashing celebrities on their face. Like, it's just, it's hard not to talk about it because it seems so wrong at the core principles of what we coach, right? But I just don't know how they get away with wasting so much money.
Well, that's a perfect segue. Because a few weeks ago, I did a swipe through and a Substack on Target, and basically how Target is in this position of being in the mushy middle. If you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend it. Just send me a DM and I'll send it to you directly. But basically the idea is that Target really has no position in market anymore, right? Amazon has purchased Whole Foods. It's become the absolute convenience. It swims both low, mid, and upstream. It's really the everything store. And then you have Walmart that has just done, its actual footprint is unbelievable. 90% of Americans live within a 10-mile radius of a Walmart. Like their distribution and reach is unmatched. Plus, Walmart has also done a lot in its buying to also level itself up. So Target's in kind of this weird place because, like, why do you go to Target, right? And the point of that is I had so many CEOs of these big brands that you would respect, these huge retailers, and so many of them reached out feeling compelled to tell me how helpful it was to read that article because of how gaslit they feel working within these companies, because it's so strict, but they're doing nothing. They're like,
you said CMOs, not CEOs, right?
A C-suite executives.
Yeah.
They were
I think
they
you
were
said
different.
CEOs. Yeah.
CEOs too. I heard from.
But how are they struggling in their own company where they're in charge?
CEOs of companies that are sold within like these brands, right? So business owners that are sold within like a Target, or other people that work at big, not Target competitors, but big names like that, big businesses that you've heard of. And the thing that's so interesting in what we're talking about with Nike is it's across the board. Like, none of these companies are saying anything. They're not doing anything interesting. Like, their brands don't really mean anything anymore.
You know what I thought? We decided to do that Target piece because we were driving by a Target
in Texas.
and I looked over at you and I looked at it and it just seemed bland. And I said, what does that mean to you when you see that? Because to me, it tells me that you have to keep reinvigorating your story so people can be reminded of it, of what it is. Because, I think that at one point it was Target, where people, you know what I mean? Like, everybody would say Target. It was like kind of fancy, but not fancy, right? And that had a vibe to it, that Target element.
Well, it had a position, right? Like, it had a place. Like, it's where brands would do collabs at an entryway price point, but it attracted all ends of the spectrum. It's like how I talked about Aloe this past week, right? Like, rich people would be excited to get a deal at Target, whereas lower income and middle class people also enjoyed Target because they could get better quality things that are like, it hit a range.
I just remember when people said Target, I got a feeling of what it was. Like, it was kind of using that French accent to say it was sophisticated, type of store.
Yeah, and it gave it an edge.
And that's what they should down. But all I see is like this bland circle, and I wonder, what is that store?
Well, and that's actually what like prompted the whole thing, because my conception, like, being Canadian, I'm not around Targets all the time. So, like, Target was always a special place for me to go into as a retailer because everyone always talked about it online. But I agree with you. Like, the last few times that I was in Target, which albeit isn't often, I've left empty-handed. Whereas a few years ago, I was just getting so many things. It was like it was kind of like that winner's experience, where in the States, like TJ Maxx, where it's like you never know what you're going to find, but you always are going to find a gem. And they lost that. But what was interesting is all of these business owners and people who work within these companies all basically saying the exact same thing, that like there's so much pressure on them to do better and to do more, but there's so much restrictions and limitations that they can't really say anything and they have to please everybody. And to your point on, you shouldn't be copying these people because they're all rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, nice. They're not doing anything. And they're not saying anything. Like H&M, what the heck does H&M represent? What does it mean anymore? Because
the difference for our founder and entrepreneur listeners is those corporate people that are launching these campaigns, they know they're just going to move to different corporations. They don't have the same investment in their brand, right? They're going to move from one. So if there's a budget, they'll do a campaign, they'll do a presentation, make everybody happy, and they'll get out of there. But for the people who are struggling to build and scale businesses, your brand is incredibly personal to you and your team. Like you really need to be able to lean into your brand and move away from what the giant corporations are doing.
Well, that's why brand is so important, because so many business owners look up, right? Like they look up to these big players, and I hear it all the time in the cohorts and one-on-ones, client calls, Rolex just did this. And I'm like, that's like the worst person for you to copy, because there's no way for us to measure if it was even successful.
No.
Like there's nothing to learn from a company that's been around for 100 years that just literally spends money to maintain awareness. Like it's not.
Unless you look at their origin story, like that's where you can learn, because most of
like
them
the
have
build up,
guerrilla
totally.
approaches. But what they're doing today is just a corporate world that's not relevant to you.
But there's also another angle to look at it too. So the first is obviously just don't even think about copying them. It's just such a waste of time and money. But the second aspect of it is kind of, it's like they're like sleeping on the reality of why they're losing their business. And we had this conversation yesterday in relation to Canadian Tire, a kind of a homeware store in Canada that doesn't sell tires really. It sells almost everything but it's kind of the same thing as like the Saks and the Targets and the H&Ms. It's that the Internet of Things sped up to improve what they were better at, and then they haven't innovated, and because they're so bureaucratic and massive, they can't take any risk, they can't make a decision, and then DEI entered the fold and complicated an already broken system, and they're not talking to anyone, they don't attract top talent, and there's nothing to be said about what makes their brand unique anymore.
To build off your point, when you're looking at your business, there's a phrase in the military, like you don't want to get into a European land war with Russia, because they just had so many tanks and so, right? But a guerrilla warfare, if you look at Vietnam, right? Like guerrilla warfare is what the less powerful group does to win. So if you're looking at your marketing budget, you don't copy a giant corporation that's got a monopoly on a certain amount of market share. You don't do the same Google ad spend. You don't go to the same agency. You have to think of guerrilla ways to win the battle, to capture market share. That generally now in today's world comes from creative content, from engaging with communities, for doing things that they're incapable of doing, right? Because of the restrictions. You have to take advantage of that decision-making lag and lack of courage to push boundaries in order to promote yourself into the space and get the eyeballs. And not enough people are doing it. They're subscribing to these garbage marketing newsletters that just serve pablum after pablum and self-congratulatory articles. I think people need to study guerrilla warfare and apply it to their business.
Well, and they also need to understand that like the ability to do more with less is actually a strength, right? Like when I'm having these conversations, that's why I like working with small business owners, because when I work with the big companies, there's so much handcuffing to problems that aren't real problems, right? Oh, we have to spend $35,000 a year on PR that literally doesn't do anything for us because we signed a 4-year contract, and we've got a relationship with this woman, and she and Vogue buys from, and there's just all of these, like, we have to keep doing the things that we're doing, and they're losing so much money, and you can't track how much they're losing. Like even when I was doing the research on Nike is down over 10% sales already from this year to last year, and they've been losing sales for years. And a huge issue for the brand is that they were never a direct to consumer brand. They were always a brand that you like discovered in like department stores or in activewear stores. Like it was always a brand that was skewed premium in other stores. They almost abandoned that entire angle of their market and tried to push like direct to consumer, but did it as a huge behemoth that couldn't be nimble enough. Like they couldn't launch like Rode and Hailey Bieber did, right? There's no person behind it. So you can't just like kill it on direct to consumer without having that like foundation in place.
Because there wasn't anything that's differentiating the shoe anymore.
No, or the product.
The tech was the same. And that's
like Nike's like what you buy when you go to Sport Check or like Dick's Sporting Goods. You see the Nike thing, you go over, maybe
it's just another Chinese made shoe with a label on it,
yeah,
right? That you have to associate with, and I don't associate it with. I wanted to ask you, going back to Target, like thinking out of the box, because we were talking about Costco, and when we talked about F45, when you amass a certain amount of power, you can give the value back to the consumer. F45 does it because they have the best instructors coming up with a protocol. Costco does it because with their buying power, right? They're able to secure amazing deals on the top thing. But when I go into Costco, There's not 20 different food processors. There's one.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why I go into Costco. It's because I trust that they have gone and secured the best deal on the best product
And it's always the best one.
in that category,
Yeah.
right? So I know, like, I believe I get a deal on when I see something in Costco, and they have a different way of storing inventory. But when I think of these department stores, I don't want to wander around an ugly when you think of those department stores, they're ugly. They're high ceilings, high fluorescence. The inventory is all on shelves. Like, I'm just thinking, you know how in Apple, like the inventory is all in the back. There's like something to show that creates a feel. I think department stores need to create a feel that's aspirational, that would make me go in there so I could discover and feel things. And their inventory can be in the back, but everything is just based on shelves. You know what I mean? In that old I don't want to go in those stores.
Well, it's actually a really interesting conversation because for a few reasons. First, years ago, I was in what has become actually one of like the landmark malls in America. It's called Aventura, and it's in Miami. Yeah. And the reason why it's a landmark mall in the United States, and there's actually some like really core stats on it that I can't pull top of mind, but it's that they have everything from like the high-end like luxury stores to like Lego stores. So it's like it's a great mall like the Galleria in Texas where like you really get like a crazy range of like income brackets. And they had started rolling out those concept stores where you can go in and like tactically see, feel, and experience the stuff, but they don't keep any inventory on hand. So it's like shipped directly to you. And it didn't work. It didn't work because they substituted experience. It made you like feel uncomfortable because you came in and like there was nothing in the store and you couldn't, for when you're wanting, the issue I think with malls more generally is they haven't dramatically improved the experience for how far we've come along. But I do think the baseline of being able, like when I go to the mall is I'm usually in intention to actually get something. So I do want them to be able to have it, but I don't want it to be the same experience that it always has been. Like I would love for there to be like maybe VR glasses where you can like see different ways to style it, or like, just like for them to invest in the experience.
Yeah. And I'm not saying don't have the inventory. I'm just saying change the space, have the inventory in the back. Right? Because most of the floor space on the stores is where the inventory is. And so I'm just walking around racks of folded things.
I do like the discoverability of when I see a shirt and it's like they have it in small and I can carry it.
Yeah, but it'll be in the back, right? Like when I went and bought a MacBook Air, like I didn't need to look at 100 of boxes stacked and look at it, right?
But that's not size dependent.
It creates an aesthetic. Like when you say experience, if I'm looking to buy ski goggles, and I go into a store, like, let me put on different lenses and go down a slope with the lenses.
You're
on,
right. Like, definitely in those kinds of stores, yes.
Right? But the inventory should just be in the back, and the display should be about creating an experience and a desire that might not be there.
The second point, though, on the department stores, quickly, because I thought it was also really interesting. I think the decline of the department store there's a few reasons. And to me, the first reason is actually the buying. The buying became, it wasn't fast enough for how quick trends hit because buyers are buying a year in advance. And the buyers that were buying for like, that's really was the fall of Saks versus like JCPenney is like killing it right now. They're doing a fantastic job because like they have great buyers. And that's like the core difference is a lot of these brands like that are doing well in the current age are people who are very focused and fixated on the buying pattern. So Nordstrom, for example, when we went in Houston, I was blown away by the home section because of how well they've curated. And what they're doing is they're not trying to make like a brand like Umbra cool. They're bringing in like Flamingo Estate, like these cool Instagram brands, and they're making the in-person Nordstrom going back to its original principles, which was discoverability. That's where you were able to really discover new brands. And what so many of these department stores have done is they're not new brands. They're not the pieces that we would buy, and there's nothing special about the experience. So the department stores that are doing well are actually going on Instagram and TikTok, reaching out with these founders that have big followings, bringing their product into Nordstrom so that people that are now have a reason to go in store because you can tactically feel it and see it.
All the things that are, it's kind of funny, you know how there's the made made for TV store
Yes. Yeah.
that sells all the things that used to be in TV
Made for
infomercial.
Instagram. Yeah.
There should be a made for Instagram store where you can bring in and tactically see all the things that are being sold on Instagram rather than just buying a two-dimensional image.
But that's what I loved about it.
It's a
when
good
I
idea
went,
right there.
I know. And when I went through the home section, I was like, you were literally screaming at me. It was literally one
I was
of
not
those. It's like,
screaming at you.
Camille, your lunch is here. And I'm like, okay, I hear you, but I'm like hoping you don't repeat it again. And then, Camille, can you hear me? I'm like, no. But
Wow. I've told you a million times not to exaggerate. But anyhow, but I think if we're on it, what made IKEA, why IKEA lasts is IKEA is an experience. You have to walk through
discoverability.
you have to walk through a certain way. You're seeing it as you see a house, room by room. And they always have new and innovative things that said, oh my God, that's a great idea for it. Oh my God. So every 50 feet, you're seeing something that's kind of new and different, but with a way to discover things for your house, as
Yeah.
opposed to walking into a giant furniture store where you just see, you know what I mean? Like, it gives me the heebie-jeebies just to think about going to a giant furniture store.
Well, the stores that need to be redone, like, you know how they did like ghost kitchens for Ubers?
Yeah.
They need to do that for department stores where it's like a smaller footprint, but like 3 floors, and it's like a pop-up. So like these brands can go in and be like a pop-up, because that's like, honestly, like there's all these brands I see online on social media, and I don't have unlimited funds, you know, just to keep ordering the Lola blanket and the parachute robe and like the Flamingo Estate tomato spray. And it would be amazing if they had one, like that would do really well. The issue is at these department stores, they would bankrupt companies because it was so expensive. It only introduced companies that had massive VC backing or were publicly companies that could afford to lose based on shelf space. They had overinflated payrolls. They're inefficient when it comes to marketing and branding, and their ability to buy is based on established contracts that are not relevant.
Let's just talk about overinflated payrolls, because this is where we were talking about Home Depot versus a garbage big box store. I think people need to consider paying double for their front-facing staff at the stores to create the experience. Like, I want to go to Home Depot and have somebody who can help me navigate a renovation project. I don't want to go to a big store and have somebody who's a new immigrant get paid minimum wage who can't help me. Right. And I think that's one way they need to reframe how you look at the cost of labor.
But it's also culture, right? Like Home Depot has very strict SOPs. They have very clear hiring parameters. Like, yes, they pay better, but they also attract a better caliber person because of their systems that are in place. And that's a huge, like, intangible benefit to brand. It's like you have a great brand when you see everything as part of the brand, not just the way something looks. Because you even were in your MBA and you got to speak to the CMO of Canadian Tire, and they were so impressed with the way that their rewards rollout looked and like their new logo and branding, and like, honey, you've got the biggest like trainability crisis. Like, I won't even go in there. And you made such a great point yesterday. Talk about the DIY point.
Well, the store Canadian Tire you were talking about used to be a staple in Canada. It was one of the best stores ever.
Because they gave monopoly money called Canadian Tire money.
Well, they were a thought leader in rewards points.
Yeah,
they actually
brilliant.
printed Canadian Tire money, became famous. You get like a small percentage back. You keep it in a drawer. And then I remember as a young kid looking at that Canadian Tire money and wanting to kind of scoop it and go buy a fishing lure. Like I love the idea of Canadian Tire money. And this was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So when I talked to this visiting senior person at Canadian Tire who had been in my Kellogg program, a graduate who was bragging about it, I said, you know, my peers and colleagues have discretionary money and want to go do some home improvement products, and there isn't one of us who isn't incredibly dissatisfied with the customer experience when we go in and we're looking for something. Like, the employees don't know where things are.
But that's such a miss to your shared values, which is such a big point on the brand core that I make you do, is that if the shared values of your customer cares about do-it-yourself projects,
yeah.
and they're already investing in doing all of the steps themselves, they go to the store to start buying the steps, and the people there can't answer their questions. There's brand misalignment because you're not servicing your customer.
It is huge brand misalignment, and that's actually well articulated, because you go in and you talk to somebody who you can tell has never done a DIY do-it-yourself project themselves.
Yeah.
They're just generally somebody who's a pulse.
I know.
There to wear a shirt, and it's so freaking painful to see an employee try to figure out where something is. Like to be so, and I told this lady when she was giving the talk, I said, I've turned and walked out of that store numerous times because I was just so dissatisfied with the brand dissonance, and I would drive an extra 20 minutes to go somewhere.
Well, and those are the things you can't measure, right? When we talk about brand death by 1,000 cuts, all of those mini decisions of when your customer either thinks of you and decides to go somewhere else or ultimately stops thinking about you altogether doesn't happen in a proverbial like Cracker Barrel rebrand, right? Or a Bud Light moment. It happens like slowly over time. And the response that Philip got personally from the person in charge of the marketing was basically like, your opinion doesn't matter. Now they're going to fast forward, and in 3 years from now, that's going to be a total now of 6 years. They're going to see him. They're probably already seeing it. There's no way they're not. But it's only going to get worse, because by the time that it becomes such a glaring issue, it's too expensive and it's too late. It's the Saks problem, right? They're like major slashing jobs.
This person was brought in to talk about leadership, and so I wanted to ask a tough question, but be respectful. So I'm like, because she reported right to the CEO of the giant corporation. I said, could you pass this on from my demographic that we don't like your store anymore? Canadian Tire points are gone. Nobody knows what it is. And I said, why not, when I go in, allow me to either click on an app or scan a QR code, and I can put in what I want to buy. And then I don't think it would be difficult to map the store and show me where it is, or have somebody pop up and go, hi, I'm here to help you out. I'm a Canadian Tire. Somebody who really knows. Like I was trying to give something that would help bring me back. And she's like, oh no, everything is amazing at Canadian, like in front of like 50 students. Everything is amazing. The CEO is doing a great job, and we have the best rewards program in the country, and nobody even knew what it was. But so it just shows that the corporate world is not paying attention to the customer.
So I wanted to talk about this video that I saw.
I think we're about to see a significant shift towards highly specialized, unconventional social media roles, meaning more positions that hinge on niche expertise, more teams behind semi-public figures, and less of the multi-hat wearing generalist. Another prominent category is video, specifically vertical and short form. I've recently seen interesting roles from Microsoft, Time, and Substack, all three of which directly cite storytelling as a core proponent of the job.
So I thought this video was really interesting, kind of talking about how marketing is moving away from having generalist roles that can wear all these different hats, and moving to like specialized roles focusing on storytelling.
There's some principles of warfare in there, in that you have limited resources. You want to focus them on the key points that make the most impact. So you don't want to, in maneuver warfare theory, there's this phrase called Schwerpunkt, which means main effort. Identify where the main effort should be. You get the best critical responses and put your forces there, as opposed to diluting them across a broad front where you don't achieve much. So that type of specialist knowledge in the marketing world works. It makes sense. I don't know how it hasn't been the case for a long time. I just find that's like a regurgitation of some kind of, it seems like that's a ChatGPT generated piece of content where they just list a bunch of stuff and it sounds intelligent, but like, what is the takeaway? This is what's holding back business owners and entrepreneurs, is that there's so much vanilla fluff out there. Like, what do you do with that if you're a founder? Like,
I can speak to it.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
There's the average business owner that's trying to hire someone to do their marketing wants to save money. They want to hire someone that can do email marketing, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, post on Reddit. They see a video talking about this new program and they want to get them to do it. And I'm seeing all of these trends and data points more recently, including the big Vogue piece that I spoke on last week, where because there is so much of everything, people are moving to quality over quantity and figuring out what are the specific skills needed to growth hack, opposed to just hiring anyone that says that they're in marketing.
From a legal perspective, like if there's a lawyer who's a generalist, right, in a small town, they're affordable and they do everything: real estate, personal injury, criminal, family. They're probably nice people who do a decent job, but they're not the people who are going to win when everything is on the line in the most case. So you can go to the top people in different areas. And I think you can do the same in marketing, right? But the corporations she's listing there, like Microsoft hired somebody who wants to talk about storytelling. Well, what story is Microsoft going to tell? Like, they're not allowed to tell a story that's interesting. Like, this is the thing with movies. Like, nobody's telling interesting stories. So they're saying, oh, we're going to hire somebody who's got skills in storytelling. And they're going to have a resume that says they can do storytelling, but it's not interesting stories. Like, so how do you know that you're hiring somebody who's, like, I think you need to go out of marketing to hire the people with the skill sets in many cases, because I think the marketing world has been just kind of corrupted by non-thinking, non-creative people who are just signaling but not doing anything interesting. But a niche is good. Like, obviously you want to have the best Facebook ads person. If you've established that Facebook is the medium that you want to go and secure your market share, having a top Facebook person makes a huge difference in somebody who has just a very surface level understanding of it in a marketing agency.
I don't think any of this doesn't make simple sense. I think sense has been lacking from the industry for a while. And coming out of COVID, it was such an easy industry to kind of jump on because it requires really no designation and like simple, extroverted skills for the most part to be able to kind of fake your way through it. And regardless of, you're right, big companies are useless, but when you're seeing big companies hire for more niche content creator roles is kind of how I would place it, where you're kind of looking for people who have like hard skills to like write, captivate an audience, like focusing on visualization, like hiring someone in a company specific for Substack is very interesting that companies are hiring for that opposed to utilizing like a copywriter and just like extending their job description to adding in Substack.
Because most copywriters suck. Right? Like, marketing is full of charlatans.
But
like,
it's also an upside
okay.
for people who are entering into the market, into the industry, because if you get really good at TikTok, you could be paid a very good salary for growth hacking on TikTok. It shows you that there's value in actually understanding the platforms than being this. Back when I got into this over 10 years ago now, it was like, can you do SEO, AdWords, write a website? Can you do all of the things, graphics? And it's why all of a lot of these businesses have shitty marketing.
Okay, I got it. So expand on that. Can you do those things? Do those things require high-level intellectual ability and innate creative ability?
Or can be replicated by AI?
Right?
Yeah.
No. So that's what marketing has been populated by. People who don't have any talent that's not replaceable, right? But if you want good copy, don't hire a copywriter necessarily. You want to know what some of the things are. Hire an author in an area. Like Microsoft saying, I want to hire somebody in marketing who knows storytelling. Microsoft should create their own production studio and hire script writers and professional filmmakers, right? But don't get it from the marketing world because they've proven they can't do it.
Well, that's actually really interesting. That's why Katya, my social media coordinator, sent me the video, because her and I were having a full conversation, and I'm like 90% of the marketing jobs are done with AI because they're just not good enough. They want to check out at 4:45 p.m. They're not focused. They're not consuming content on the internet after hours. They're not staying up to date on new programs. They check in, they check out. They give you a 60% effort in their day, and it's shitty work product. And that's why I'm excited about AI, because their jobs should be replaced. Like, they're not in the game. They're not active in their role. And that's why she sent me the video, because I had this like whole passionate conversation with her as this 22, 23-year-old. And she ended up sending me this video a few days later, and she's like, you're right. Like, it's going to be exactly to your point. It's going to be filmmakers that are moving into TikTok. It's going to be authors that are moving into storytelling and story writing, because ChatGPT gives a good product, but it's not yet, it's based on the input, right? So it's not yet the best on a basic input level. And the majority of these marketing teams are giving shitty product.
Yeah, ChatGPT can write stories. But the question is, there's a billion stories that could be written every microsecond. Somebody has to be in charge of saying, hey, I want a story on this that makes the difference. And that's where you need somebody with elevated cranial capacity, not somebody who just engages in smoke and mirrors.
Totally. The last thing I wanted to touch on is I got some really positive feedback last week from the Vogue article about kind of the discussion between basically, to recap, in case you missed it, Anna Wintour has effectively stepped down and she selected her successor, Chloe Mao. And it broke the first time in 30 years where they didn't hire a visual creative, they hired a writer. And Chloe Mao's entire plan is basically to cut down from being a 12-month subscription to only going out with 4 to 6, pieces per year, and competing less with Harper's Bazaar and Cosmopolitan and more with like collectible art or coffee table books is kind of the direction. So it's going to be a highly produced, like high-end book that goes out a few times per year than it just being like a monthly issue. And a lot of the feedback that I got actually really connected to our topic on the film festival and how we feel about movies in general, in that there is a delusion of a ton of crappy things, and we're moving towards, it's no longer impressive to just move like super fast. If brands want to last, they need to be more focused on the quality piece instead of the quantity piece.
Yeah, I understand why people are excited about it. I have severe doubts of people's ability to sit down and read in today's world. I think they want it, but I don't know if they want to invest in what GQ used to do with its articles. Like, it would have like very well researched investigative articles that were like 10 pages of magazine in small font. Rolling Stone used to do that. But you would read these things and you would learn about the band, like in Almost Famous, right? But just bringing a writer in and doing it less frequently, unless you're saying something interesting and investigative, I don't know if you get people to pay attention.
Well, there's obviously a ton of interest and intrigue for how she does this, right? Like, and I agree with you. I do think, though, in the Internet of Things, we're looking for more meaning and direction behind trends and fashion, and that is missing, because the reality is that the majority of people don't really want to be inspired in fashion by Kim Kardashian, right? They want that institutionalized direction of a brand house, a brand name, stating the trends.
But let me ask you a question, because it's all well and good for Vogue to do that. But the way that fashion brands have evolved into giant corporations, are they prepared to buck giant corporations? Like, to me, the real question is, will Vogue actually go back to real style and fashion commentary and risk alienating the giant houses? Because they have so much power now compared to a bunch of... Vogue had more power when there was a lot more smaller, independent ones. There were still big brands, but the way that corporations have consolidated, their revenue and everything is so based on it. And that's what I, as a reader, need. I need to know you're going to say what's real, not what the industry wants you to say wrapped in a different package.
Now, I don't think that Vogue is perfect. I do think, though, it's relevant to articulate to you that the majority of what they speak on are not the brands that we rip apart. Like, they're not really diarizing, Gucci's fall fashion show. Like, it's mostly Phoebe Philo or Kate or these brands that aren't LVMH backed. So that's what makes Vogue sadly almost more boring, because they're speaking to such a small group of people that can afford a $700 simple black dress that it doesn't have that like mass appeal, and it's not interesting issue over issue to just regurgitate the pieces that the New York elite are wearing. It's like they almost need to get back into doing those more like, if it's based on a quarter, like what is that quarter's theme? Is it for right now, Vogue's issue that came out today is like capturing how like the American great outdoors has been like a huge trend in the past year. So like they're already trying to kind of do it, and the brands that they're focusing on in the Vogue issue are not the brands that you're talking about. So they're not that indebted to the tacky big brands. It's that the brands that are like Vogue approved, the Kates, the Phoebe Philos, etc., are just, they don't have that mass market appeal because they're like expensive, unbranded. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where Vogue is in this weird, it's in this weird mushy middle, because Vogue means a lot to a lot of people, but their execution doesn't.
Well, they should lean into that and get people on the ground. Like news agencies need journalists in countries. Mm-hmm. Vogue needs people in countries where fashion is emerging, like real humans, not just regurgitating digital stuff, so that it attracts people who are really interested in trends. Yeah. Right. And build that community, and a brand can come from that. But that's interesting.
Yeah. So I want to do the last topic here on my side on kind of Instagram Face 2.0. So the Cut came out with an article called Forever 35. And the idea is that we're in this age of medical aesthetics and surgery has never been more advanced. So Kris Jenner had a crazy facelift this year. She looks absolutely insane. The doctor that she used is quoting at $300,000 as a starting point. And you're basically kind of seeing like all of these actors and actresses literally turn back the clock, and this kind of idea that you are now kind of forever 35 for where kind of technology has advanced to. But what was the most interesting to me is that in the article, what it breaks down is like even bad surgeons are getting crazy results because of how far technology has gone. So it's not specific to like the technique of the surgeon, but it's more like where science has gone more generally. And it's interesting that what happens when it becomes commonplace to just perpetually look 35 to 40.
This is standard human behavior, right? As soon as something becomes commonplace, people will seek a departure from it. And it's usually based on resources. So people who have more money will go and do something that people who don't have that money can't do. So whatever it is, there's always going to be something new they're going to be doing. At some point, they're going to be inserting diodes that create auras of colors as you walk around. I don't know. Like there's always going to be something that costs more that allows people to achieve status, right? So if everybody can look 35, that doesn't become a big deal anymore. And so the people with money are going to have to. That's how the whole fashion, that's how it all works, is that there's this constant desire in humans to achieve status, and people with resources will pay and create industries that allow them to look like they have higher status than others, as opposed to just talking about beauty or what makes people happy or what a brand is. So that's
the thing that's really interesting, though, we're watching it like live time right now, especially with the beauty brands I work with budget. It's constantly a topic of collaboration when one of these celebrities breaks out with their new facelift. You know, it's like that 15 minutes of everyone freaking out for how good they look is such a massive opportunity for a brand to have like their placement with that person. It's so fascinating to me because from a strategy standpoint, when I'm in that decision chair, it's just such an interesting brand question, because when it's so obvious that it's plastic surgery, when it's communicated to be plastic surgery, when the results of what we're seeing, we've now seen Anne Hathaway, Lindsay Lohan, like we've seen so many of these stars come out with almost the exact same like new face. What does that mean for these brand activation moments? Like at what point is it becoming passe?
Well, what is beauty, right? Like beauty can come from working hard, like taking care of your skin and being fit. It also comes from good genetics, although people don't want to say that, but babies stare at attractive humans. They don't stare at ugly people. Good genetics are bred into us, and so we want to recognize good genetics because they stand in the 10 to 20% of the human population, right?
Yeah.
That's what greatness is. It's always that not everybody has it. But if everybody has it, what is beauty? Right? Now everybody's just average, even though they look at what that might have been beautiful 5 years ago.
But it's like even more complicated because it's like it's the beautiful people that are like rehabbing a beautiful moment. But what's so interesting to me is like when we were having like, you know, one of the brands I work with was talking about sponsoring Lindsay Lohan, you know, was like doing a collab with Lindsay Lohan. And I'm like,
was it an alcohol brand?
No.
Okay.
She had this crazy facelift and everyone's like freaking out about her. But I'm like, to me, what makes it's exactly that reaction you just had. Like what makes Lindsay Lohan's transformation so interesting, you know, with air quotes, is that you can't believe that she can look that good with what she publicly went through. So therefore, do you want your brand connected to that entire arc of what all of those pieces mean, opposed to just the outcome?
Yeah, like
people aren't looking at her for like, this is how to live your life. You know what I mean? Like people are like, oh my God, we can't believe you look like this. And that difference is relevant.
Yeah, it's such an interesting nuance, and which is an interesting word because that caused quite a bit of controversy on our first Instagram.
Well, because you did it on purpose.
Face thing, but controversy is good because that video went crazy, and I stand by the fact that most people don't understand nuance. But in the end, like when I say what is beauty, like essentially we're getting to the point where you can just buy a mask. Like it's just a more complicated mask, and essentially you're putting a mask on your head, right? Like these advanced plastic surgeries are just a mask, but it's one that you just don't rip off, but you're putting it on. It's not you. And so is that beauty when you can just buy a mask to put on so you look younger?
Like the Phineas Ship argument, like at
Yeah.
what point is it your face versus, I mean, it's definitely your face, but you're making a very interesting point. I think it's overwhelmingly so interesting and complicated, because I think the first, 10 facelifts, it was like, holy shit. And then you question if it's a one-off. But I think that this article that The Cut wrote kind of underscores that the rate in which we're advancing, it's almost disappointing, because I feel like nothing is going to be, like shocking anymore. It's exactly your point. It's like, our ability to make ourselves look better just like has no end. So especially in an age of when we're staring at our faces and obsessing in them on social media.
Look, as somebody who's done quite a bit of study on human behavior and manipulation techniques and all that stuff, social media terrifies me for what it's doing to the human animal, especially when parents give it to their kids early. Like the impact to the neurological development of children who are staring at these two-dimensional images
All day.
and all day being battered with images of what beauty is just essentially it's corrupting the human animal to chase something just like a rat chases something in a maze, just at a different level of complexity. And so everybody's always talking about who's got a faceless, who's beautiful. Like, who cares? Like, in the end, for the good of humanity, like, all of these things are so meaningless, but we're now all slaves to this phone. And how do we define beauty on it? What are we doing? Nothing's good enough. Like, I forecast, let's put me on the record. In 18 months, fake eyelashes are going to be 18 inches long. They're literally going to be peacock feathers out there, because it always has to be bigger, right? Like, nothing ever comes back. Like, so it's always going to be more and more. Like, you're going to see these peacock eyelashes going around and lips that are the size of a dinghy. Like, it's, I don't know.
I mean, it depends. Like, if you go to the right Florida strip club, you can find it. But no, you're right. And I this portion was set up because the Instagram face, did so well. And I've also find myself I'm a bit conflicted in it too, because I love beauty. I love beauty, and I love this, like, the science of the treatments. I think it's so fascinating. Every year we go to Korea, and like they can keep moving forward, like what they're able to continue to do. And it's,
but we're not getting reconstructive surgeries. We're just getting some treatments to preserve.
not fair. But I mean, I'm also not 60.
But think of it. People love beauty because beauty is scarce. If beauty is everywhere, it's not beauty, it's average. So you love beauty because it's scarce. But what everybody wants, every consumer wants, is they want the ability to get beauty, but not their peers.
Yeah.
Right? That's what everybody is fighting for. And then that's where money comes into play. Can you buy the beauty that the other people can't? But it's a hamster wheel that will just destroy you and take your resources away from your business and make you unhappy. And there's today's happy Mr. Rogers moment.
That's awesome.
We're doomed.
We are doomed. I also recently read the Johnny Carson book. It was disappointing. I think
him as a person or the book?
Him as a person. It was disappointing.
That's a different version of Instagram face, right? He had camera face. Like, he turned on a different persona when the cameras was on. It was a prick when it was off.
Yeah.
Right? But like, we need real meaning in our lives. I think understanding what Johnny Carson was like is interesting, because he's a prick. Most people are not happy who young people aspire to be.
Yeah.
They're mostly miserable, and that's why we need to redefine beauty. Find beauty in outdoor moments. Find beauty in things that exist in nature. Find beauty in people who have aged gracefully. But this phone is not going to ever lead us in that direction.
I think that's a great wrap-up point, because I think that is like kind of our manifesto. It's like, find purpose in your brand, right? Like, find it's not about the destination, like it's about the journey. And that's why I love talking about these brands like Trader Joe's, and like what makes them like such cool brands to learn from. It's like how they made decisions every day, and how those decisions over 40, 50, 60 years, I mean, the business is over 60 years now, how that resulted in later an iconic brand. And so many people want to rush that process, but like, that's not the point. Like, the point is to have purpose in your brand and what you're doing.
Yeah, like you can't just buy a facelift and become a beautiful human. Just like you can't just buy something and become an amazing brand. Like there's a pathway to becoming amazing or beautiful, and you have to invest in it.
That's awesome.
All right, well, let's see if you guys can figure out what we're going to be doing the next couple of days. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. And DM us if you can guess what it's going to be, and you'll see us when we come back, kind of a little different. Not with Instagram face. I'm not going to have dingy lips.
Surprise! Philip's getting a facelift, but it's awesome with you guys here today. We'll see you next week.